So thank you very much. So thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about BIM, but I'm also going to talk about tennis and cricket and Philharmonic orchestras, and I'm going to talk about the human being's toilet behavior, which has fundamentally changed over the past few years. So it's going to be quite an interesting 25 minutes, and I hope you enjoy it. I walk around a lot, so I apologize if I kind of start disappearing off the edge of the stage. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you about being a data conductor. I've kind of done this speech for a couple of years, and I really enjoy it. As an organization, we really like good data. There's a lot of bad data around, but we like really, really good data in this industry. And for a lot of people, people think data is really, really boring. When we talk about building information modeling, we kind of forget the information bit and we start worrying about the 3D element. In my world, in my opinion, it's all data. It's all part of the same thing. We should consider it that when we start moving forward as this industry really starts to evolve. Because I think data is generally awesome. I can geek out on it and talk about it for hours on end. And I get generally excited when I start talking about it. And data, when you think about it, can start in really humble beginnings. I'm British. I love cricket. I know I'm in Germany, and probably the concept of cricket is completely alien to most of you. But cricket did bring us some really interesting data graph inventions that we now use in a lot of other sports. Hawkeye, which of course became really famous in tennis, comes from cricket. A relatively boring sport, as most of you probably think. Tennis is very exciting. The same technology is now being used on goal line technology in football. And of course, if we had that a few years ago, England would have beat Germany in that very famous game. So, you know, we need to be a bit faster with how we use technology. But data is there. And I think the thing that we sort of forget as an industry is that as human beings, we now consume more data than ever before. And with technology evolving, our behavior patterns in the way that we live is fundamentally adjusting due to the technology we have at our fingertips. Because as technology evolves, we change our behavior. We become more addicted to the technology and more addicted to the data as this drives forward. And one day, we're never going to get up. If you've seen the film WALL-E by Pixar, where people were driving around in their kind of floating wheelchairs, it's because they're just consuming data on the screen all the time. Now, that's a dystopian future, but fundamentally, this is changing. I cannot take responsibility for this slide. This slide is actually from one of our best clients, Rocker, who are the world's largest manufacturer of toilets. And they are fundamentally looking at how human behavior is changing to adjust the way they design the toilet. This is true. You can go and have a look at it. I think they're doing a really interesting blog about it online. But we're changing. So my name is Matthew Jackson. I'm head of engagement. My title is kind of changing all the time. I'm on Twitter, CAD for Mac, so take pictures, follow me. I do quite a few little interesting things. It also means if you take photographs of me and tweet me, my boss knows that I'm doing some work. I'm an architect. I worked in public sector. I designed lots of schools and hospitals for the British government for a long time. I also designed pubs. I'm also a gamer, and I'm a huge geek, and I'm not afraid to admit it at all. And I'm very passionate about what this industry could do and what this industry could become. And I think it's a fantastic time to be working in construction and the built environment. A very kind of sales pitch very quickly about who we are. BIMobject is the world's largest platform of content. So basically all the chairs you're sitting on, all the lights that are around you, we have digital representations, little Lego bricks as such, which architects can download for free and place those into their design. And we link the design world to the manufacturing world. We are trying to bring manufacturing closer to the design, which of course helps things such as supply chain, logistics, kind of understanding exactly how things work, the space that it takes up, and importantly, the data and the performance that lives within these real things that we have to buy and spend an absolute load of money on. We're trying to connect these things together. We have 1,500 brands today, and we have 1.7 million professional architects who use our platform all over the world. We're just 7 years old, and we have a lot more to do, so it's a great company to work for. So, back to the main topic. We're here to talk about being a data conductor, but I need to set more of the scene first and discuss that there is an elephant in the room today. And instead of describing the elephant, I hope this works, I'm going to let you listen to how the elephant sounds. Good. I have to stop. That is not Simon Rattle and the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, which was the picture. If you've never been to see them before, I highly recommend it. That is a college in the US. And what I mean by this is that we, right now, as an audience, we are an orchestra that does not have a conductor that understands what we do. All of us could be really good at our individual instruments. We could be very good at the violin or the trombone or the trumpet or the percussion. But as an industry, when we come together, we sound like that. It's not meant to be negative. We have work to do. We come together, but we're not quite sounding correctly because we're not conducting ourselves in the right way. And this is because we can't agree on how to read the music. And that's because we can't agree on how to talk to each other. And I'll give you some really good examples because the human race is actually really, really bad at standardizing anything. Who here travels around the world and has a multi-plug adapter to fit in all the different electrical sockets? Yes? I have one which has like 7 different things on it and it plugs in. The same with adapters for laptops. We cannot agree on how to use electricity. There's an even more basic one. In Germany, all of you drive on the wrong side of the road. Should all be driving on the left. This is a fundamental, really simple thing, and we don't agree on how it should be. And we're stuck now with 2 ways of driving. If you want to look this up or grab me later, incidentally, we all drove on the left. It comes from a medieval time when we had lances and shields, and it changed during the Napoleonic Wars in the 18th century. But we all used to be on the left at some point, and then we changed. So we are confused. We don't really know what we're doing or where we're going. This is also a slide I use when I talk about Brexit. It's exactly the same, kind of confused and lost. Incidentally, I've lived in Sweden for 4.5 years, so I have escaped, which is fantastic already. But we are lost as an industry, and we don't really know where we're going, and we don't really know how to maybe speak to each other. But there is hope, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. You may have seen this. I think there's a couple of talks about this subject during this 2-day conference. ISO 19650, which actually comes from the British standard 1192 Part 2. I was been part of the British Standards Board for a couple of these parts. And it's kind of the beginning of, globally, a standard that the industry can build off of. It's only been around for about 6 months. If you think about how long we've been doing BIM, it's a bit behind. There's another one coming as well, which I think also there's a couple of talks about, which is the European standard for how we describe something. So that is how we describe a chair. And it sounds crazy, but as an industry, we can't even agree on how to describe width, height, or depth. We have no standard for that. And that is absolutely mental, considering that Amazon is doing a really good job at standardizing the way they talk about things. So this is coming, I think, at some point next year. I know a lot of people on that. So it's beginning. I am starting to feel confidence that the industry is going to do something really, really good. So going back to my toilet slide, we're being asked for a huge amount of data. And I apologize to anybody in the audience that works for a software company, but I'm a Revit user and a Vectorworks user. And I can fundamentally say I have not changed the way I model, so physically draw something, for about 10, 15 years. It's basically the same. I know that the companies have done some really good improvements to make it more efficient. But what has changed is that I'm being asked for a lot more information. I'm being asked for a lot more data, up to a point now where models are starting to break. So we need to rethink the way that we do this. And because the internet's getting better, basically, we should be talking about APIs. And if any of you are here shopping for platform technologies such as ourselves or any software, the most important question you should be asking yourselves before you buy anything is, do they have an API? Because if they don't, say thank you very much and go somewhere else, because it's not future-proof. And I'm very firm to kind of stand and say that. Because basically, if we want to move forward and we want to share, silos are dead. If you have a silo, and if you're a company that has a silo, you don't share your data or your database, you might as well go back to a paper filing cabinet. It is totally pointless. You need to be able to drive new technologies forward. You need to be able to do that by connecting and working together. And that includes working with potential competitors to drive the industry forward. You hear a lot of people talk about ecosystems, and this is what we mean. So at BIMobject, we know what we're good at, and we know what we're not good at. And when we know we're not good at something, we go and find another startup technology company, and we go, hey, do you have an API? Yeah, we have an API. We should connect together, and we should start sharing information. So we've started working together with companies that do automated pricing and tender based off the object list that we give them. We're working with people who are specializing in clash detection technologies, automated design, AI tech. We know what we're good at. We have our database. Let other technologies kind of fill the gaps and work together to create that ecosystem, which we should all be working towards. Because I want us to stop talking about building information modeling and really start talking about building information management. And I mean, a lot of people have been saying this for a long time, but I think it's still really important that we keep repeating it again and again and again and again and again, because it is a massive change and shift in the way that we should be working. But this is where it comes in. Data needs to be owned, and it needs to be defined. Who in here is a client? So you own a building or you own facilities? Anybody? One? Oh, that's not good, but welcome. Contractors, builders. Oh wow, where's everyone from? Architects, designers? Okay, mostly architects and designers. Okay, cool. As a fellow architect, you can take this role. You can add this to your list of feasible jobs, I think. But basically, you need to work with the client very, very closely to understand what they need to have design and data consistency, not just for the one project, but for their entire future estate, whether it's new or whether it's being refurbished. And I've got a project which we've done with a client. This is the British Ministry of Justice, quite high security. We worked with them to basically standardize the way which they describe spaces for prisons and for courthouses. And what they were doing is actually they had Revit people in-house inside the government, and they were sharing a 3 gigabyte Revit RVT file as their standards file. So you can imagine, as an architect, how often you're going to download that file. Not very often. They had no way to keep their supply chain up to date with the standards that they wanted to employ. So what we did was we broke the model into pieces and made these downloadable, available spaces, full of furniture, full of specification data, and full of everything you need. So basically, as an architectural firm, you come to BIMobject and you take the Lego brick and you plop everything down into could be a refurbishment or into the area that exists. And this works. This is brilliant because as a client, they just look after the little individual components that you no longer have to download. And we managed to get them down to 4 different types of chair across their entire estate by specification. The efficiency gains were huge, and there's other gains for this as well. As clients, they want to start buying en masse. It's the economies of scale. They want to start standardizing maintenance. And all these things are now possible because they think about an object. They think about the individual Lego piece, which goes into the wider model and then is used further down the line. And why is this? So, for years and years and years, we've been trying to build the fastest we possibly can for the cheapest we possibly can. And we've ended up with a global estate of not very well working, not very well maintainable buildings, unfortunately. But actually, we need to start thinking about capital expenditure versus operational expenditure. So how much money do I spend building a building versus how much money do I spend maintaining a building for 100 years? And they're usually 2 different departments, and they never speak to each other. That's your first challenge to overcome. And then we need to start talking about total cost of ownership and total life cycle cost. And I'll give you an example. So I'm building a couple of new buildings, and I just need, this is one example, I need a water pump. Now, in my one project, I could probably need 10 of those across my entire estate, thousands. And I decide, as the client or as the designer, how that water pump should work. But as architects and as designers, we don't decide what's purchased. That's decided by somebody else. And what happens is due to financial constraints, they pick this one here on the left, which costs 10,000 euros, and this is all the information that exists. But actually, we should be picking this one. It costs twice as much on day one. But if you start thinking about how much something costs over time, it costs less. You know, we have the climate crisis, we have Extinction Rebellion, we are starting a lot to talk about sustainability now, and as an industry, this is the level that we need to get to understand how much energy our buildings now consume over a 50 to 100 year life cycle. And as designers, we can be part of that, and we can help the clients achieve their sustainability targets. Also, what's really important, and especially being in Germany, a very proud manufacturing country, in Europe, we produce high-quality manufacturing. We know we want to produce something which is made from better materials and is better for the environment and uses less energy. We know it costs more. But now we have an opportunity to sell this equipment into buildings and design using the better materials so the client saves money over time. But the other really important thing is that humans actually shouldn't be making these decisions at all. We should be conducting machines to make this decision. And this goes back to my API. This goes back to my thing where we have a BIMobject over here on the left-hand side. It is full of specification information. This information has been set by the client. You've downloaded your Lego brick. It's in your model. And we should use machines, and we have started doing this, use machines to make inquiries so it gets to the right result. And the good thing about machines is machines can basically check the entire world's product database once it's been built. Whereas humans, we have a finite time to think about something and a finite time to make decisions. Whereas machines can keep finding out and making those decisions until they find the right one. Major world clients today, not just governments, but we're working with private enterprise, we're working with supermarkets. They want this now, and they want to do this now. And this is possible today. And it's awesome because it really does answer our challenge to the sustainability question as well. The other really cool thing about using little Lego bricks instead of drawing things yourselves is that we can basically start communicating to other forms of technology. This is a kitchen. And basically, we did a little experiment. We don't sell this kind of software, but we just wanted to test to see if it was possible. We were able to make a BIM model speak to a factory, and it built the kitchen because we filled the model with the information that was needed. And it was fantastic, and it was accurate down to 2 millimeters. This is a fully automated, I think this is actually a German design company. And basically, we can do that today, and that is also coming. Manufacturing and assembly. Mass standardization is coming too. So that's also really, really exciting, but it's not possible without the BIMobject. Other things that we can do and we can think about, because you've filled your models with these little Lego bricks, you can start extracting really easy and interesting information online. So you can start interrogating with people who don't know how to use Revit or ArchiCAD or Vectorworks. You can start leaking these to simple, this is a Matterport model. So it's almost like a basic digital twin. Basically, someone scanned a room, data tagged everything, and it talks to the database. So you understand what everything is. This is actually our office. I see that Carl, our CEO, has just walked in. He sits here. This is our kitchen, and everything's tagged. We know everything that is in this building. This is a working live, very simple, very basic digital twin. of kind of video understanding. So it scans the model, picks everything up, and then it pulls all this information over from our database. All of these manufacturers are on BIMobject today. You can go on and download any of this furniture, any of these things here, and it links it together. It's just a couple of APIs stuck together, but the important thing is that the hard work is done at the beginning by creating these objects, these little Lego bricks. They are so fundamentally important because they open so many opportunities for the industry to work in the future. So to summarize, as designers, you should be using BIM objects in all your projects. They can be generic to start with, but we need to get to a point where we are responsible for this too. We need to kind of basically digitize every single manufacturer, and we work with so many brands, so many people in the supply chain to digitize their entire product library, and we're working really hard to get that done. Which means that you, as designers and contractors and owners, you now have access to a huge library at your fingertips to design your buildings with real things, so you know that things will actually work. I haven't really spoken about digital twins. I know that there's a lot of talk about it this afternoon. But today, to get a digital twin, there is so much manual consumption and so much manual grabbing of information from the supply chain. And this, again, should be automatic. We should be conducting this data together so we can bring it all together. And that, again, comes from a lot of the BIM objects, a lot of those little components inside your models. And finally, all of you have the potential to be conducting this data. Don't be an author. Don't sit there and have a look at a manufacturer's PDF and copy and paste it into your model. What a complete waste of time. Reach out to your supply chain. Talk to them. Make them understand how important this is for you. Introduce them to us. And we can help them on that journey as well. We have so many people to help digitize. So don't be an author. Be a conductor. And hopefully, in the end, the industry will sound exactly like how Simon Rattle and the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. Thank you very much. Just recommend it again. If you haven't been to Berlin Philharmonic, I have, do go, because it is amazing.
Great.
Thank
Going
you.
Not towards 2001, but
No.
2020 and beyond. Thank you, Matthew. A very inspiring and exciting talk. Any comments from the audience? Because I have many.
That means that everyone either understood it or no one understands it at all and are really confused. It's one of the two. It's never in the middle. I mean, if you have questions, we're on stand 48. We're near the entrance. So you can come and find us.
Yeah.
And we also released our annual event. We have a headquarters in Malmö. And you can find tickets world.bimobject.com. Early bird price right now until the 20th of December. Buy yourself a Christmas present.
Yeah, I won't let you go yet. I have one question or
awesome.
a remark. Like, I'm not a real architect. I'm a city planner, although it says architect on my card. So I'm already thinking about scaling this up into like wider built environment outside there somewhere.
Yep.
So how do you see the basic challenge there is that you don't have one data owner or 10 data owners, but you have actually how many inhabitants there are in Munich. Hordes of data owners who are, of course, they have their own data, and then you have private, closed data, open data. So the digital twin of your office is not so easy to extend into whole quarters of a city.
It is a really good point. So I had a really interesting meeting with basically the civil version of MI5 in the UK because of the projects which I showed, and they had a lot of concerns. Of course, you know, if you're going to start hosting information about prisons, if anyone's seen the show Prison Break, it's basically what could happen. So there is a lot of discussions about security. I think on the flip side, though, if you look at Copenhagen City is a really good example. So in Copenhagen City, they have a street basically in the center, which is the most densely data point, IoT point street in the world. So basically have all these sensors, how many cyclists are there, what is the air pollution rates, how many pedestrians are walking past, how often is a button pressed for the crossing. That data set is fully open and available for anybody to consume. And what they have is they have loads of people building technology about understanding how do we get all these different streets and different buildings to talk to each other. And I know that when BIMworld emailed me to write some questions about a blog, they started talking about city information modeling, SIM. Now, I will be totally honest with you, I'd never heard of this acronym before, because I thought we were talking about smart cities. So I was confused that we're just making up another acronym as we go. But at home, I now have a light bulb which I can turn on and off with my phone. And that is as much a data point that is important as basically an entire city talking to each other. So, I mean, people are scared, but we can break down these barriers because the value is absolutely huge. Singapore are trying to do that too. The one Singapore city model, which is quite interesting.
Quite, yeah. We'll have to continue this discussion in a stand. Any other remarks at this stage?
Come visit us and come to our annual conference next year. It's going to be awesome.
Right. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.